Section 9.1.25, a survey of 2,242 adults in a certain large country aged 18 and older conducted by a reputable polling organization found that 456 have donated blood in the past 2 years. We want to complete parts A through C below. For part A, it says obtain a point estimate for the population proportion of the adults in the country aged 18 and older who have donated blood in the past 2 years. Okay, so what we want to be able to do is we want to use the formula for the point estimate. And so the formula for the point estimate is taking the value of x over n. So the value of x is 456 and the sample size is 2,242. So now let's go ahead and plug this into the formula here. So we have 456, we're dividing that by 2,242, which gives us a point estimate of 0.203. So therefore the point estimate is equal to 0.203. And so therefore we can say that the point estimate for the population proportion of adults in the country aged 18 and older who have donated blood in the past 2 years is 0.203. Okay, now the next thing that we want to do is we want to verify that the requirements for constructing a confidence interval about P are satisfied. So let's first talk about what the point estimate is and what does n represent. So we need to know that. So we know that from our previous part A, we know that the point estimate is equal to 0.203, and we also know that n is equal to 2,242. Okay, so let's take a look at first. We need to make sure that n times p times 1, or the point estimate times 1 minus the point estimate is going to be greater than or equal to 10. So we know that n is equal to 2,242 multiplied by 0.203 times 1 minus 0.203. We want to check to see if that's greater than or equal to 10. When we multiply that all out, we get 362.735, and therefore that is greater than 10, so therefore that checks. Okay, and then we also need to check that the sample size is not explicitly stated to be less than or equal to 5% of the population size, but it can be assumed to be less than or equal to 5% of the population size, as the adults surveyed are from a large country. So let's go ahead and post that in here. So now, again, when we check the fact that we have n being less than or equal to 0.05 of the population, okay, so what we can say here is that the sample size is not explicitly stated to be less than or equal to 5% of the population size, but it can be assumed to be less than or equal to 5% of the population size, as the adults surveyed are from a large country. Therefore, all of the requirements are satisfied. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to construct and interpret a 90% confidence interval for the population proportion of adults in the country who have donated blood in the past 2 years. Okay, so let's write out the given information. So first and foremost, we know that the point estimate that we have from the previous parts are 0.203. We also know that the sample size is 2,242, and what we want to be able to do is find the critical value Z alpha divided by 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and so in this case we have a 90% confidence interval. Okay, so we're given the fact and we have the table. So the table tells us that we have a critical value at 1.645. Okay, so we can either find that by using the INV norm option or finding the alpha divided by 2, or since this is a common confidence interval, then we can just use the table here since this is the critical value for that. So now let's go ahead and find the lower bound and the upper bound. Okay, so we know the point estimate is 0.203 minus the critical value of 1.645 times the square root of the point estimate times 1 minus the point estimate all over the value of n, which is 2,242. And we want to find the upper bound, which again is 0.203 plus 1.645, which is the critical value, and then 0.203 times 1 minus 0.203 over the sample size of 2,242. Okay, so let's go ahead and use our calculator. So again, we're going to start from order of operations. So we're going to take 0.203 and multiply that by 1 minus 0.203. And then hit enter. And then we're going to divide it by the sample size of 2,242. Okay, now that we have an answer, we're going to take the square root of that. So we're going to hit second square root of this answer. And so we're going to hit enter. And so now we got the square root of that. Now we're going to multiply that by negative 1.645. So we're going to multiply that by negative 1.645. And then we're going to add 0.203. Okay, so therefore we get our value here. So rounding that to 3 decimal places, we can see that the lower bound is going to equal 0.189. Okay, similarly, we want to find the upper bound. So we're going to do the same thing. So again, if you put that in your calculator, and just to save time here, we're going to go ahead and put in 0.203, multiply that by 1 minus 0.203. And then we're going to divide that by the sample size, 2,242. And then we're going to take the square root of that answer. And then we're going to multiply that by 1.645. And then we're going to add the 0.203. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that. So let's round this number to 3 decimal places. So we know that the upper bound is going to equal 0.217. So there is the upper bound. And so from here we can say that the 95% confidence interval for the population proportion of adults in the country who have donated blood in the past 2 years is in the interval of 0.189 to 0.217.